Welcome to WFPC Podcasting, your local source for the heart and history of Pike County, Indiana. And now, here's your host, Randy Harris.
In 1928, Calvin Coolidge was president. The Yankees were the dominant baseball team. Charles Lindbergh had just phoned the Atlantic, and the Depression had not hit the rest of the country. We were still in the roaring 20s. But what was life like during the Depression in Pike County? Today we have someone who can walk us through a journey that has touched 11 decades. Irma Burch Capeheart. Welcome. So, and you were born February of 1928.
That's right. Are you filming? And I was born in the house where Homer Capeheart was born. It was born, the house was, the farm, two farms joined. Homer Capeheart and my dad were double cousins. Their mothers were sisters and their dads were brothers. So they grew up kind of like brothers and sisters themselves because Grandpa Capeheart and Uncle Alvin Capeheart, they had their farms joined there. So that's where I grew up. And that's a mile west of the Ivy Church. And I was one of four children. My sister was 13 years older than me. My brother was 10 years older. And then I had a sister that was 6 years older, which passed away when she was 12. I'll tell you about that a little bit later. But we grew up at Ivy, and I went to the Ivy Church. My brother and two sisters went to the Ivy School, but then it burned. And then I always went to Otwell School, all 12 years to Otwell School. My brother and sister graduated from Otwell High School. And my two sisters and brother rode in a buggy to the Ivy School, and the horse was Old Blue, was her name, and they would ride the buggy, turn the buggy around, the horse would go back home and go in the barn. Dad would take the bridle off and put the buggy up. And now they had to walk home. She didn't go get them, but they rode the buggy to go to school. And I walked, after I started school at Otwell, I had to walk a mile out to the Ivy Church, and they didn't lock churches then, they didn't need to. There was not so much meetings going on. And I would stand inside the church and wait for the bus to come. And on rainy days, Dad would come and pick me up, but he would be on a horse. We lived on a mud road and no electricity. So there was nothing, if it was very muddy, we went in the buggy or the wagon and left our car out on the rock road, So that was kind of the way that was. And my sister, I think I said she was 13 years older than me. So, and then my brother being 10 years older than me, I was kind of like an only child because my sister died, the one that was in between us. She got sick Christmas Day and woke up with a sore throat. And they had the doctor with her all week, but she kept feeling worse and worse. So finally the doctor said she needed to go to the hospital. She went to the hospital. They took her to the hospital New Year's Eve. She died 7 o'clock New Year's morning. So she got sick Christmas Day, died New Year's Day, and as she had diphtheria, they had to bury her that afternoon. So she died at 7 that morning at 1 o'clock. Her burial was at the Otwell Cemetery. And they had to have the funeral in a tent because she had a contagious disease. And that was back before penicillin, and that was in January the 1st, 1933. So that was a terrible thing.
No goodbyes.
Mom and Dad hadn't got used to her being gone yet. And here she was she died and buried the same day. So you can imagine what that was like. So my mother had such a hard time with her death that in 2 or 3 years, we moved over on 356 on the Delectable Hill Farm. You know where that is. We lived there. Dad just rented that from Posey Scraper, and we lived there for 2 or 3 years, and it helped my mother because then when we moved back to our farm, they remodeled the house a little bit, built a porch on and done a few things, and that helped my mother get over my sister's death because she needed something. My mother had an awful time, so we moved back over there. And another thing, my dad was he had stallion horses, and so he would breed the mares, and the farmers would come to the farm with their horse to be bred, and then Dad dealt in horses and cows and had different livestock that he sold. So we always had something going on there at the farm, and anytime that if a car would drive up, and I was nosy, Dad said I talked too much then, but if there was somebody else in the car that didn't get out, I'd go out, get in the car with them and talk, and I'd just tell them everything they wanted to know or ask about, So I guess I was kind of too talkative. But I know once he said, Arthur Nance come to the house, come to barn, and he was going to buy a cow from Dad. And so Dad was busy talking to somebody else, so like I said, I was talking to this guy, and he said, wonder how much he wants for that cow. And I said, well, he said $40, but if he couldn't get it, he'd take $30. And Arthur just laughed. He said, well, I believe I'll offer him $30. And when I told Dad that, he said, you shouldn't have told him that. And I thought, I didn't see anything wrong with it,
Out of the mouths of babes.
What'd you say?
Out of the mouths of babes. Children are honest.
I know it. That's just what I heard Dad say, that he would take $30. So I told him that. But let's see, I was going to say, I always wanted a bicycle. I never had one because I lived on this dirt road, and Mom and Dad didn't realize I wanted a bicycle so bad. My girlfriends always had bicycles, and when I visited them, that's all I wanted to do. And they'd want to play games or do something else. I'd want to ride their bicycle. Well, I always had a pony. And they envied me for that. They thought that would just have been the best thing ever. And when they come to my house, all they want to do is ride my pony, But we always had plenty to eat. We had our own, we butchered, we had our own meat, and Mom put out a big garden. We had our milk and our eggs, and Mom canned a lot of stuff, so we didn't have a lot of money. Not any extra money, but we always had plenty to eat, and we always went to church, and we always had a lot of prayer in our home, and that was one thing. I had a good home life like that, and I learned to play the piano when I was about 5 years old. I started playing the piano, and Mom and Dad thought I should take some lessons. We contacted Arlene Scroggs at Algiers. And she was a music teacher and a school teacher. She said, well, Mom and Dad would have to make me quit playing by ear if she was going to teach me to play by note. But they wouldn't go that way. They said they felt like it was a gift from God for me to have the ability to start playing. So we contacted Stella Craig at Otwell, and she gave me lessons at 25 cents an hour. Had 1 hour for the lesson, and I took a few lessons there, not many, because I was satisfied with the way I could play, But my sister wanted to take lessons, and a lady that lived about a mile and a half away, Ivy Alcorn, she walked to my Mom and Dad's house, gave my sister a lesson, charged a dime, and my sister had a hard time learning, and this music teacher would play it over a time or two, and then she'd have my sister try it. And by me just hearing the song, I could play it. So I'd tell my sister, scoot over, let me show you how that goes. And she called me a little smart aleck. She thought she didn't like that at all, because if I'd heard it a couple of times, I could play it. And I've always had an ability to do like that. Music has been my life all these years. I've been inclined, and I still play the piano every Sunday at church, and don't have to have the music. So that is a gift from God, I believe.
That is a gift.
Uh-huh. But my sister always said to You know Charles Hill and Dick Hill.
I do, yes.
But
I knew that.
it was their mother. It was my sister. And she used to say, every time there's any work to be done or any dishes to wash, Irma June's on the piano bench. And I said, you could get on the same as me, but I had the ability and wanted to play, you know. So that's how I have always been very involved in music. I would play the piano at night when the house was too hot. We didn't have electricity, of course. The house was too hot for Mom and Dad to go to bed, and they would sit out on the porch and wait till the house cooled off. Well, I would just stay in the house, and because I was by myself, my brother and sister were both married, and I'd play the piano in the dark, and because if you light a lamp, it made the house a bit hotter, you know. So, and then when we went to bed, we just had screen doors hooked. We didn't have to have the doors locked, you know. We felt safe, and we were safe back then. And so anyhow, that's kind of, and my dad asked me one day, said, do you think you could learn to play the accordion? And I said, well, maybe I could. So he said, well, we're going to look into that. So he borrowed an accordion from a friend, and it had 2 bass notes, and that's them little black buttons on the left. And he brought it home and said, see if you can play this, if you can learn to play it. Well, it was my job to go gather the cows in to be milked. I had to go out in the field and drive them in. So I took that accordion with me, and when I come back, I could play 2 songs on it. And Dad said, well, if you can, he said, we're going to look into this. We're going to get you an accordion. Well, my dad had hay fever and asthma really bad. And in the fall of the year, the ragweed was so bad. And so that's when it really bothered him. And my brother was still at home, and he stayed there on the farm. My mother's 2 sisters and their husbands, and her brother and his wife had moved to Detroit and worked in the Ford plant up there. So they said, well, they come and got us. Uncle Merrill Schick did, and took me and Mom and Dad to Detroit for about a couple of weeks in the fall of the year. And Dad went to a pawn shop there and bought me a 12-bass accordion, and so I mastered it pretty good. I think I've got a picture of it here. And then, as I got a little bit better with it, he got me another one, and bought them there in Detroit at a pawn shop.
So, Irma, do some math for me. This is about 1938, 39,
Probably so.
40?
I would have been about 10 there. And then this other one, I was a little older. And
that looks more high schoolish.
yes. And so after that, then my dad, I always sang. And I used to sing at school. I sung Craig's Store. Once they stood me up on the counter and I sung. Somebody had me to sing, and somebody gave me $1, and that was a lot of money back in the 30s.
My.
And I kept that $1, and finally I bought a big ceramic dog about like this with it, and I still got that dog. It cost $1, and I still got it, but that was just the first $1 I ever made singing. So after that, my dad, he decided to sing with me, and we were known as the Capehearts, and here I've got a picture of that. And that was taken over at the Capeheart Farms, and that accordion we bought from a couple of women at Bicknell that had been singers, and one of them got married, and they was going to break up. They wanted to sell that accordion for $265. But Dad didn't have the money, and he borrowed it from Ott Thomas at Algiers, and he was a big farmer, a wealthy man. He borrowed the $265 and bought me that accordion. And then Dad and I sung in revivals, and we sung in over 200 churches. We sang all through the tri-state and over in Illinois, and sang on Dr. Reveal's radio program in Evansville a few times. And we we sung in the revivals lasted 2 weeks. We would sing in revivals all that time, and you could see that we really enjoyed it. We sung nursing homes. We sung, well, there wasn't many nursing homes, but we sung in all churches, Rally Day churches, and which different places. Some civic organizations would have us to sung for a lot of funerals. So we was well known for our singing. And when I got married, and this is Charles, my husband, Charles Burch, and he passed away 6 years ago. But we were in high school together, and we liked each other. But my folks wouldn't let me date until I was 16. And he lived at Cato, and he didn't have any money, or a car. So he used to laugh about it after we got married. He said he knew he was safe. I couldn't date because they wouldn't let me, and he didn't have any way to take me anyhow. So, but after he went to service and come back and got a job at the mine as I forget what it was. I worked at the mine. It just made $1.05 an hour. But we got married and moved into a little house there in Cato and paid $18 a month for the rent. It had been a playhouse, and then they made it into a dwelling. It didn't have plumbing or anything. Had to go outside to the toilet, but I was used to that. That's all I'd ever had, But that was in 1949, and we was singing at Pleasant Ridge Church, Dad, in a 2 weeks revival. And I said, Dad, do you think the preacher would let us off for a couple of nights so we could get married? And he said, he didn't like that. Dad didn't like the idea, but he said, well, we'll ask him. And the preacher said, sure, that'd be fine. So we took off 2 nights to get married, and we was booked solid from September to April the 10th. Dad and I had revivals booked all that time. So we took off 2 nights to get married, then we went back to singing in revivals. So I was trying to think what else I know about that. Anyhow, I'm from a family of iron workers. I counted up, there's 14 iron workers in our immediate family. My husband was an iron worker. Our son was an iron worker. Charles Hills was an iron worker. His dad was, his uncles, Dick Hills, 4 boys were iron workers. Yeah. And did you know Carolyn Fears?
I did.
That was my niece, So Kelly was an iron worker, but there was 14 iron workers in her family. So I don't know what that's got to do with all this other, but anyhow.
It's all interesting. It's all good.
He thinks, well, you know what? I did have a good childhood because we had prayer, and we went to church every Sunday, and in between on prayer meeting and all, we did have a good family.
Our generation today is missing that.
Yes.
Jesus,
yes.
That's the answer.
That's the truth. That's the truth. And I was born into a family with a Christian family, and then when Charles and I got married, I told him a few things that I wouldn't allow, and so he went right along with us. And so then he was converted, and so we had 4 children, and still had a Christian home. So let's see. I was trying to think what else I want to tell you about. Anyhow, and there's a picture here of my cousin and I at the Cornfield Conference. That was this was at not at the Cornfield Conference. This was at
the marker.
Yes, yeah.
So let's talk about the Capehearts, and let's talk about your dad's double cousin Homer Capeheart. The Capehearts were all right there together.
Yes.
And when Homer was about 9, I think they moved across the river into Davis County.
Davis County.
You guys stayed where you were.
We did. We stayed there.
And Homer was a hard worker, a farmer, and very industrious.
Yes.
Tell us more about Homer.
Well, he was, he owned Wurlitzer factory.
He bought Wurlitzer jukeboxes and everything else they did.
Yes, and they said he started out, I think, selling.
He was a salesman.
Baking powder from house to house, I think, is way he started his business selling. But he was very ambitious. And he was a good person. My dad used to tell him when he would come back after he was in the Senate and would come back to Oakville to visit, Dad would remind him, now religion, your mother raised you the right way, and you stick with those principles. Don't you change, and don't you alter your way of thinking and your belief. And Dad would warn him, you stay as you were brought up, And I think he did do a pretty good job. I felt like he did. And as far as being honest and trying to do, he always had a tie with a gravy on it. We all used to laugh about it. His tie was always dirty.
I had to change my shirt.
Did you?
My problem's coffee.
I see. And I was named after his wife. Her name is Irma Mueller. She was from Wisconsin, but they named me Irma after his wife. And, he had 3 children. And in 1960, his son, Tom, and his wife went to, I believe it was Columbia, and they were going to start a meat packing company there, and the plane crashed and killed Tom and his wife, and they had 5 little children, and they were all left without a mother and father. And the family, her sister, took 2 or 3 of them, and they was raised by their aunt and uncle. But Homer was, we called him Earl then, they called him Earl, but he was very ambitious and very down to earth, and I believe he was honest. And you don't see a lot of candidates like that anymore, do you? I don't mean candidates, I mean public speaking, public
figures.
Yes,
His heart was in the right place. And
yes.
It's nice that your dad would remind him where he came from.
That's right.
So let's switch gears a little bit. And people can fact check me because I'm talking from memory. I'm not looking at anything, but I think that Cornfield Conference was in 1938.
I think it was too.
And that was his bid to run for Senate.
Yes.
And they took one of his cornfields in Davis County and brought in a bunch of political. Tell us.
I don't know how. I've had it someplace at home, but I didn't know just where. Thousands and thousands of people were there. I think it lasted 2 days. And
it was a revival.
Yes. And tents, I forget how many tents that I've heard that was up, but we went both days. And that is when he really made his announcement or something to run for Senate. I believe it was then. But I was trying to think something else that...
I've seen the pictures, and a guy that helped me get involved in politics and was really my mentor was Judge Nixon, Lester Nixon.
Yes.
Lester and Homer were pretty close.
Yes.
And I think at one point served as a campaign chairman for Homer. I'm not sure when that was, but he was my first campaign chairman.
Right? Is that right?
And he would talk about, what was the nickname you called Homer?
Earl.
I think he referred to him as Earl a time or two as well. But there was a time when we had Homer from the north part of Pike County,
Yes.
and we had Vance Hartke in the south part, both U.S. senators for the state of Indiana were from Pike County.
I know it. That Vance Hartke was from Stendhal, wasn't he? Or
Yes,
Spurgeon or something?
yes.
Yes.
And he ended up playing basketball at Evansville, and his career led from, and became mayor of Evansville, and his career led from there.
Yes.
But Homer stayed in the Senate several terms
I know.
until the 1960s.
Yes, he did. Huh?
And Birch By,
He was good looking.
good looking, young, had a great song,
Yes.
good pretty wife, and
That's right. Just had a lot of going for him. That Homer was just a kind of an old fat guy by that time, they thought. Right. And Homer moved his sister and her husband. It was Byron and Bess Haskins. They had 7 boys, and that was Homer's sister. They lived up around Burr Oak, that's outside of Otwell.
Right.
And they were almost on starvation, and he moved them over to the Capeheart Farms there, where the Cornfield Conference was. He bought all of that, and so that's where they lived. He arranged for his brother-in-law, Byron Haskins, to manage the Capeheart Farms. And Bess and Byron lived there and raised those 7 boys. And one of them, Jack, was a year younger than me, and the rest of them, one went to the Navy and spent 20 years in the Navy, and they all turned out to be real good citizens. And 2 of them moved to Indianapolis, and the one stayed in, like I said, Cameron stayed in the Navy, and but he really did his sister a favor. His mother died when he was about, I think, 18, maybe. Homer's mother died, and he was younger than that because his sister was so good to take care of him and his 2 brothers after their mother died. So he felt like he owed her a little, owed her something, but he was really good to that family, and they all just loved him. And back to the Ivy Church was built in 1902, and my dad's mother's brother, Uncle Homer Kelsaw, preached a dedication service for that in 1902.
Is that the same building that's there
yes,
today?
Yes, it is. And a group from Petersburg has bought it now. And
that's right.
And I think it's doing well.
I think it is. It's a Bible church.
Yes, And then on the 100th anniversary of the church, because like I said, it was built in 1902, my cousin, there's quite a few ministers in our family. My cousin, one of the Haskins boys that grew up on the Capeheart Farms, was a Methodist minister, and he had the dedication service for that, the rededication service for that. And that was all the people that used to go to church around there and grew up in Ivy was there at that day. But that, like I said, there's several ministers in our family. Even there's this. The Capehearts came from Wales, and settled in North Carolina back, I don't know when, and the name then was Gabhart, Gabhart.
Really?
And they changed it to Capeheart,
I've known some Gabharts.
Yeah.
Did not realize that was the same thing.
What'd you say?
I've known some Gabharts and didn't realize that was the same name.
Yes, well, Homer, I think, stayed. I think he stayed true to his beginnings, the way his mother brought him up, because we always felt like that he was pretty fair in politics, as much as I guess you can be in politics. Right. You can be, can't you?
You can.
Yeah.
But
so I used to. I would play I played the piano in the evening. Like I said, Mom and Dad would sit out on the porch and wait till the house cooled off, and I would play the piano. Because I was like an only child, because my sister was 13 years older, my brother was 10, then my sister that died. So I would just sit in there in the dark and play the piano, And I can't bake pies, and I can't sew, and don't know anything I can really do, but I love to play the piano and then playing the accordion. And I can do it without any music, so has to be a gift. God gave me the gift, I believe.
So and when you were traveling with your dad as the Capeheart singers, was it all Christian gospel?
Yes, it was. Once in a while, we would be asked to do something for a civic organization, and but we would usually, I think even then, we would sing Christian songs. I believe that's what we would do, and.
So when big band came along, it didn't do much for you.
That wasn't us.
Elvis didn't inspire you.
No, no.
Beatles, you were staying with what you do.
That's right. And we sang for free will offerings. We didn't charge, and for a revival that lasted 2 weeks, they would usually give us $150, and that was $75 a week, and that was pretty good money. We didn't ask for any fee. We just knew it was a free will offering, whatever the church gave us. But we would, Dad and I, and then Charles, my husband, was so good to go with us after we got married. And his car always started better than Dad's. Dad's car wouldn't start, or they didn't have any brakes or something. But Charles was so good to take us, my husband, and it was such a good. He just fell right in line. He didn't sing or anything, but he sure helped us make it.
He was your manager.
Yes, he made it possible for us to do all we could do, yes. So I've been blessed with that. And my 4 children live close. Carmen lives the farthest away at Fort Branch. Our son and his wife live down the street. 2 girls, the other girls live in North Park, and we live in the North Park area. So my 4 children are so good to me since Charles passed away. And they check on me. I don't do any cooking or anything because since I have to have a walker, I just can't do anything. But I've been blessed with 4 good children. Not a one of them is, they don't neglect me at all. So that's good.
But you are still in your house by yourself?
Yes.
And that's fabulous.
One daughter does the cleaning, does my laundry. One daughter takes care of my bills and my medicine, and she oversees all of that. As our son lives down the street, we've got squirrels and birds and duck and everything, and we live on a lake. So he comes down twice a day to see how I'm doing and feed the squirrels and the things and brings my mail in, changes my light bulbs, anything needs to be done. And Carmen does anything else that's loose. She's right there to help you. So, and the grandkids are all good. I feel blessed because I can't do it for myself anymore. I had a bout with a UTI thing a year and a half ago.
Those drive you crazy, don't they?
Oh, I was in the hospital a week, rehab 2 weeks, and part of the time I didn't know a thing. The doctor said it had gone to my brain, so they thought I'd had a stroke. They ruled that out, and but it really it just about done me in. So I can't walk anymore now without a walker or anything. But I've just still been blessed with a good life. Good.
So when did you and Charles leave Pike County?
As soon as we got married, because
and that was 49.
Yes, just right away. He went. My brother and Gordon Hill, my brother-in-law, got him a job at Edwardsport as an iron worker. But he had to start out as a laborer. He started out at $2.75 an hour, which was better than $1.05, you know. Mm. But then he became an iron worker, and he worked for industrial contractors for several years. So he was a real good worker. And we've lived in Little Rock. We've lived in Kennett, Missouri. We've lived in Marquette, Michigan, in Champaign, Illinois, and of course at Cato, and lived at Altwell a while, and Terre Haute, we just lived every place because he had to go where the work was, when he was just an iron worker. But then when he got in with the industrial, we moved to 1960. We moved where we, the last time, but we've lived in Evansville since 1960. Yeah. And he passed away 6 years ago. So I still live in the same place. And it's just been a good life, a very good life.
Thanks for watching WFPC Podcasting. Let's take a quick 60 seconds to hear from our episode sponsors.
WFPC welcomes a new sponsor, Hathaway Excavating and Rock Yard, located right here in Pike County on State Road 64, just west of the Arthur Junction, near the new Pike County EMS building. Besides excavating and dirt work, Hathaway Excavating adds a rock yard to their bundle of services, along with all kinds of dirt work, septic cleaning, septic installs, and always local friendly service. Hathaway Excavating and Rock Yard, 812-582-2646. Recently, the real estate market has been unpredictable, but at Harris Real Estate, we still have clients looking for homes and properties. Let us help you sell your home or property and or find your next one. We're local. We know the business. We know the community. Harris Real Estate has listed and sold hundreds of properties right here in Pike County. Harris Real Estate, 812-380-1065. And when you wash your vehicle on a regular basis, there are many advantages. You're easier to see, you preserve the life of your vehicle, you help maintain its value, protect its paint, prevent corrosion, and it just looks better. It only takes 6 quarters or your credit card to get it started. Stop by Petersburg Car Wash today, 401 South 9th Street, Petersburg. You've always had God to guide you through it, haven't you?
Pardon?
You have always had God to guide you through it.
That is right. That is right. Because I know I told Charles before we married, like I said, there'd be no drinking, there'd be no this and that, and he agreed to everything that he knew. He knew that I meant business. And,
it's a simple lifestyle, but it's a better one.
It is a better one, yes. Mm-hmm.
Take us back to the 1930s. The rest of the world is going through a depression, but you were on a farm in Pike County, and you probably didn't see you never had money.
No, but I've seen canceled checks. I've given them to each one of my kids. Dad would write $1, and he would put gas, where it says for. He would get $1 worth of gas, and but I know what you mean. We didn't have money. We had plenty of food.
But you had food. You had family.
We had love.
You had love. You had church.
Yes.
You had community.
We sure did.
I think we're missing that today.
Yes. And when I was a little girl, every night I would play the piano before I'd go to bed, and I would sing. I used to be able to sing then, but now since I've been sick, I can't sing anymore. But I would sing that song, "If I have wounded any soul today, if I have caused one foot to go astray, if I have walked in mine own willful way, dear Lord, forgive. Forgive the sins I cannot see, forgives something else that I can't think that next line, and guide me, care for me, and my keeper be, dear Lord, forgive." But I would sing that every night before I went to bed. So it shows that we were...
That's a great prayer.
Yes. And we just, when Charles said we'd move around for his work, we would always find a church and go to church there. And we've lived in house trailers, so we had to have one to move around in. But in 1960s, when we bought our house there on Harmon Court, and but we've just always been wanted the Lord in our life, and I think that is the answer to a lot of this, And I'll tell you, unless you want to say something else, when I was about 6 years old, in Jefferson Township, they would have a Sunday school convention, and every year they'd have it, and it would be at a different church every year. So it was our turn at the Ivy Church. They had a basket dinner, and then each church that was involved in Jefferson Township was supposed to have 2 special songs. So they come to Ivy, and I wasn't sitting with my mother. Dad, I was sitting with some little girls, and so at the end, they had a little time left, and they said, "Is there anybody else that's got a special song?" And I raised my hand. I was about 6 years old. And the master of ceremonies said, "Well, come on up." I got up there, and we had a friend. He lived at Winslow, a real close friend of ours, a family friend. And the boy played the violin, and he was real good at it. I motioned for him to come up because I wanted him to accompany me. And I looked at my mother, and she looked surprised, like, what's going to happen? So I started singing. And so this is Paul Chumley was his name. He found out, he strummed around, he found out the key I was singing in. He played it for me. I sung "When the Springtime in the Rockies." I sung there at the church. And I looked at my mother, and she looked so disgusted. And they all clapped. So when I got done, I thought, boy, I must have really done a good job. And I can see now that they was kind of laughing at me. But I sung "In the Springtime in the Rockies" at the church service.
I'm guessing that you just did a really good job and that they appreciated.
Maybe.
And it started something.
Maybe so. But that's what I sung. I thought it was appropriate, and Paul knew how to play it. So there we had it,
That is a great story. You've got lots of great stories.
Well, I don't know much else about Pike County. I'll tell you, Dad was a breeder had stallion horses. I think I told you that. And at one time, the farmers used to come to the farm and bring their mares. But he decided he bought an old Buick and an old horse trailer, and he decided to take the stallion to the farm. That would help the farmers. They didn't have to lose any time coming to the barn, to Dad's barn. And so that's what he done. And he come home one day, and he said, "I have been in 5 counties today." And that was a lot of counties back in the 30s. And that old trailer and everything, but that was really something. Today you can go across the United States, in less time. But he had been in 5 counties, and I remember thinking that was a lot. He'd really covered a lot of territory. So
probably Davies and Knox
and I think as far as Martin, I believe, yeah.
Possibly Green. Possibly Du Bois.
Yes. And another thing I was going to tell you about, when we had this 100th anniversary there at Ivy, there was one gentleman got up. He said he had something to say. He said, if it hadn't been for Irma Capeheart, that was my dad, he said I would have been a hungry, cold little boy a lot when I was growing up. Well, he lived with his grandmother. His mother, he had him out of wedlock, and they lived on my grandpa's, in a little old dinky house of my grandpa's. I doubt if he even charged him anything. He lived with his grandmother, and he would walk past our house going to the Ivy School. So one of my brother or sisters told Mom, said, "Sometimes Bill don't have any lunch when he goes by. He's not carrying any lunchbox." So Mom, she realized that probably they didn't have anything to fix him that day, because his grandmother was a widow, and Mom knew that they were very needy. So she started fixing his lunch bucket, and hung it on the gate, so it wouldn't embarrass him or anything. And she'd have my brother to hang it on the gate. So Bill stopped and she knew he had lunch every day. And at the Ivy Church that day, he said if it hadn't been for Irma Capeheart, he said I would have been hungry. And he later in life, a couple from Ivy that didn't have any children took him in and kept him, sent him to rest of the school, and sent him to high school. He married and moved to Indianapolis, and he had some kind of a business there. He was very prosperous, and he said, and then Dad told him once too, said, you go to Craig's store at Otwell, and they're going to know what to do. So Dad called Harley Craig and said, Bill Higgins is going to come in and fit him in with a heavy coat, a warm coat, and some overshoes and some warm shoes. So Bill told that Sunday at church. He said, Irma Capeheart, and he said, I would have been hungry a lot of times or cold, but if it hadn't been for Irma Capeheart, and that makes you feel so good. Mm-hmm. That was better than a lot of things that you could hear about your parents, you know.
Yeah, better than money and
yes,
gifts.
Yes.
That's
I
a
know.
gift.
And I've got some. That's my Grandpa Kelsaw. He was a 7 foot tall.
This is your mom's dad.
That's my dad's.
Your
dad's mother's.
Your dad's mother's
father.
He was 7 foot tall.
And his obituary said not an ounce of fat on him, but look at his hands and feet. He was a big fella, and had to have his shoe made. This is his shoe.
Wow.
And he was let's see, and it's got wooden pegs in the bottom, and it's got a gunny sack and something else. Let's see. I forget what he died in 1909, so that tells. I forget what year he was born, but
well, he was no kid here.
I know it.
So if he was 70,
yes,
that takes you back to 1839.
That's probably so. And see, I've had that shoe. I've had cousins offer me. I don't know how come my dad and mama ended up with, but I've had that shoe in the family. All my mother and dad gave it to me, and one of my grandsons has already asked for it, and I said, you can have it when I'm done with it. But that shows how big how of a big man he was. But you can see by his hands there how big he was.
They're mitts. Yes,
And they said he was very. He didn't like it because he was big, and I've heard him say. Dad said that once somebody was in the shoe cobbler there at Otwell and said, "Where's Billy Kelsaw?" Because Grandpa Kelsaw was supposed to be out there, and they said, "Well, he's down in Billy Kelsaw's boot fixing a leak." And my grandpa didn't think that was a bit funny. That when they told him that, he didn't think that was a bit funny. A lot of people got a kick out and said, "Well, he's down in his boot fixing a leak." But he didn't want to be known as a big person.
Earlier, you were talking about Delectable Hill.
Yes,
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I kind of nodded when you asked if I knew. I think that is what I refer to as the Eisen farm.
It is the Eisens,
Okay.
And you know who's buried? There's a little cemetery back there. John Foster Dulles' relatives are buried back there in a little cemetery on that property.
So if people don't know who John Foster Dulles was, let's explain it to them. Dulles Airport.
Yes.
As you come into Washington D.C.
Sure.
That was named after him.
Yes. And I don't know why if they grew up around. Well, there was some Fosters around Evansville that claimed to be related to him, and I got acquainted with him. But Dad would have me to go back when we lived on that farm. He would have me to go back and put flowers on their graves because just out of respect for them, we didn't know them or anything. But John Foster Dulles' relatives are buried back there on just a little patch.
Okay, and the Fosters were merchants in Petersburg.
Yes.
And then they did go they did migrate to Evansville. But yes, it all began in Pike County.
Yes.
And John Foster Dulles was the his brother was Secretary of State, and his brother had another big position.
Yes.
Notes are better than my memory at this point, but his brother had a position with Eisenhower as well.
Yes, I think so too.
And that was a pretty important 1-2 punch back in the day.
Yes, it was. And I don't know why it's called Delectable Hill. I imagine it's because of that way back sometime. Do you think? Because it was the Delectable Hill farm then.
I just assumed they had great produce and
maybe so. But the Isams, I think I knew Betty Isom real well. That passed away. I think she has now. But that's where we moved after my sister died, and we lived there 3 or 4 years, and then we moved back over to our farm. And like I said, Mom, then it was my sister's death was a little bit easier for her, and as they changed the house around a little bit, that made it better, because she said any place she looked, she could see where my sister had been, and she just couldn't hardly. She just about almost had a nervous breakdown after my sister's death. That was just terrible for her.
Yeah. And your sister was 6 years older than you. You were 5. She was probably 11.
Yes.
So this would have been 1934, 33.
She died in 1933, the morning of 1933, New Year's morning. And had got sick Christmas morning, just lived a week. And like I said, there was doctor in her all the time, but she kept getting worse. But they said she died of diphtheria. And that's why they had the funeral that afternoon at Aldwell Cemetery. And it was in a tent.
What causes diphtheria?
Yes.
What causes it?
Oh, I don't know. She started with a sore throat with her. Then she lost her voice. She was hoarse and lost her voice and had the croup and also. But I remember we always had a phone. Our family always had a phone. And they called that morning. My mother's sister was staying with me, and my sister and brother, and said that Loca had died. Her name was Loca. I've never heard that before or after. And I didn't want to ask Mom anything about it when I was a little kid, because I was always afraid to make Mom sad. Because I just, I'd give anything now if I'd talk to my mother more about it. But, I was just afraid it would make her sad if I mentioned Loca's name.
How do you spell that?
Loca. And I've never heard it any place else. We always had a phone. Our ring was 5. Harry Alt had a phone. Their ring was 4. Clinty Craig had one. His ring was 3. And we would eavesdrop. My mother and Dad would eavesdrop. And they did too. And sometimes there'd be 3 of them talking. They'd be talking. My mother would be listening, her dad, and they would get in on the conversation too.
Funny.
And that nobody cared.
Kids don't understand what a party line was, do they?
No.
So you were all connected.
Yes.
But it was supposed to be 3 rings or 4 rings as your neighbor, or 5 rings as your other neighbor.
I know it.
And you're to respect that, but it's a small community.
Yes. And nobody cared, We were just.
What, you weren't going to say anything that mattered?
No, I know it. And we just listened in.
Funny. Entertainment.
That's right.
When did you get a radio?
Well, we had a radio, but it was battery operated. And so we always had a radio. Dad would listen. The morning he would turn it on to get the news. and then he wanted, there was a Christian program, E. Howard Cadle from Indianapolis, and Dad wanted to listen to that before he went out to go to work on the farm, I think. And so we always had a radio. Then you would turn it off until Lum and Abner come on in the evening. Lum and Abner, you remember?
I do remember Lum and Abner. My first career was in radio, so I studied radio quite a bit, and my mother would get me those albums that of old radio programs, because she knew I loved to study that.
It was a Philco radio. Have you heard of Philco radio?
I have.
And we would turn it off because didn't want to wear the battery out.
Right.
The battery probably cost $3, And
wow.
He didn't. So then in the evening, we would turn it on to get the news again. But that's about the only time we had the radio turned on. But Dad always had farm hands that worked for him. Didn't pay the one. One was a Treadway. I don't know if you probably know some Treadways. Mm-hmm. Their dad worked for my dad. Joe Treadway worked for my dad, and probably paid $1.50 a day or something like that. But like I said, we weren't.
Wasn't much to share, was there?
That's right.
But I'm sure there were other benefits that came.
Yes, and I just had a real good childhood and marriage. So I feel like I've been blessed all my life. Like I told him, I went to the doctor a week or two ago, and she said, well, your heart's in good shape, your lungs sound good, your blood pressure's good. And I said, well, what am I going to die from? And she said, well, she just didn't know. And I said, she said, but your body's full of arthritis. And look here, I had to have blood work done. That's been over a week ago. She said, you bruise easy. And I said, yeah, I know that. But I've never taken vitamins or anything, never had a broken bone.
You won't drink coffee?
Don't drink coffee. No, I don't like. And I don't like milk. I've never drank milk. But
what is your secret food? Is there walnuts or blueberries
no, or? Just meat and potatoes and gravy and things like just old-fashioned things. Now then I eat whatever the kids bring in. They'll say, you need to, they'll either get me something from Canton Inn in Evansville or...
It's in your neighborhood, isn't it?
What?
Canton Inn is in your neighborhood.
Yes. So I don't really, I don't know. We always had prayer before we left the house in the morning when my brother and two sisters were home. Dad was led in prayer. Before we went to bed at night, we would all kneel and Dad would lead in prayer. He usually done the leading in prayer. But we relied on the Lord for a lot. And I have with my life all this time.
That's so important. Reading that Bible.
Yes.
Is paramount.
That's right. And I don't know. I always had a real girlfriend as I was in the first grade, and my brother was a senior, and we went to Altwell School. He had skipped a year. He was pretty smart. He skipped a grade, so he was just about 16, I guess, when he graduated. But I was crying for my mother. The first day of school, I was crying. So he come down to try to comfort me. He was a senior. He come down to try to comfort me. And he said, well, here's another little girl. And it was Mary Alice Metters. And she was from Altwell. And she married Bill Davis. I don't know if you knew him or not. But anyhow, you know Greg Davis?
I do.
Okay. It was, that was related to them. Anyhow, she was crying too, so my brother introduced us and said, now you'll be all right, and he kind of comforted me. So Mary Alice and I, we quit crying, and I said we stayed friends all through high school, and high school, and even after we married, she and her husband and me and Charles went on vacations together. We were just the best of friends. But once in the first grade, I wet my pants, and I thought, well, I got to do something. So I went up and told the teacher that I wet my pants. And she said, and her folks were Mansfields. They were in Altwell. They had a dry goods store. So she wrote out a note, and she told Mary Alice to go with me. She said, you go up and give this to my mother, told me. So we read the note on the way up the best we could. And it said that Irma Jr. had an accident. And we thought, an accident was a car wreck.
Right.
We thought, she's all wrong because we hadn't been a car wreck. I just peed my pants, you know. And so we just couldn't figure that out because she said it was an accident. And so her mother, anyhow, she gave me a pair of dry pants, put mine in a sack, and sent us back to school. But Mary Alice and I laughed about that later in life, how stupid we were because we just couldn't figure that out because Miss Mansfield said I'd had an accident, and we hadn't been in any car wreck. I just wet
Semantics.
my pants.
different wavelength. That is fascinating. What else What's your earliest childhood memory? Do you have a vision, or can you think of something that you remember from early age?
Well, I remember we had a lot of ministers at our home. If we had a revival going on at Ivy Church or something, and it seemed like Mom could always cook up a good meal, just real easy. And she would always have me. She said she didn't want the women in the kitchen with her while she's cooking. She'd say, "You go in the living room and entertain them and play the piano or something for them." So that's what I would do. That was one thing, and I guess that was one thing that I always remember, having a lot of company.
And entertaining them.
Yes, And I'm sure it didn't sound too good, but it kept them out of the kitchen,
I bet it was great.
I don't know. But
so what age did you realize, I don't know if you've known of Tony Rothrock, but
Yes.
Tony...
I've read about him.
Well, Tony was in here a few weeks ago, and he's a similar story. He started out by playing with the spring on a door.
Is that right?
And he just had a gift. When did you realize you had that gift?
Well, I guess when I started in first grade, the teachers knew I was singing a lot, and they would have the junior and the senior class at Otwell would have a play every year, and they'd put on a play, and it'd be at two different times, of course. And they would, between acts, when they would change the acts, the furniture and all on the stage, they needed somebody to sing, and they would have me to sing when I was just in the first grade and on up. And then whenever I started playing the accordion, they would have me to play the accordion between acts. And I thought then, I kind of realized that was something different than the others, because my sister didn't have that talent, and my brother played the violin, and my sister was a good singer, and so was my brother. But they didn't go on with it like I did. But I've just always...
And you're still doing it to this day.
Yeah, yes. I play every Sunday. I have to take my walker down to the piano when my daughter, Amy, goes to the same church.
Which church is it?
The Wesleyan Church in North Park, there by Popeyes on First Avenue. And another daughter, Christy, goes there. So and Amy picks me up for church, and I go down. She helps me up to the piano because I got to have the walker. And then after the singing's over, she helps me back to my seat, and I sit on the front row, so it's easy to get to, But and if somebody, if they have an altar service and somebody starts out in a song, singing a chorus, I can find it on the piano and accompany them without any knowledge of anything, It has to be a gift. It has to be, the Lord has blessed me with it.
That is a way for you to serve.
Yes, And I enjoy it. My husband used to like to, when he was working, he would go to bed about 9 o'clock, and I would stay at the piano, maybe play for about an hour or so, and he would say he just loved to go to sleep and hear the music. But I could play popular songs back years ago and things like that. That was, but religious music has always been my
soothing.
Yes.
Your daughter Carmen and I and her husband Tom, we've been friends for
yes
many years.
And I see your picture in the Pike County paper.
All right. But we are so thankful that you've come in. We're blessed that you've been here.
Well, I didn't know of anything. I worried about it. I thought I don't know much about Pike County, only around Ivy, and I don't. I thought, what am I going to talk about? I was afraid that I wouldn't have anything to tell you that would be of interest to you at all.
It's perfect. I think people are going to love to hear your stories.
Well, I appreciate that.
Anything else you can leave us with? Anything else you want to talk to us about?
I don't. I was trying to think if there's anything.
I left my notes on my desk But I didn't need them. I just turned it over to you, and away we go.
I didn't feel like I had anything to offer. I've been praying about it that I would think of some things to tell you. I just don't know. I was trying to. My cousins used to come. This is another thing. As my mother's two sisters and her brother and family had all lived in Detroit, my cousins up there loved to come to our house to the farm and hunt. The boys did, and they would come to our house and spend a few days, and they would love to hunt. And there was 3 or 4 of them. So Mom would fix them, give them a blanket. They would have to sleep out on the ground, because they didn't have room for that many. But Dad didn't allow them to shoot a gun on Sunday. He said they can hunt through the week, but he said no. He felt like that was the Sabbath day. We kept it holy, and we didn't buy anything on Sunday. Now then, you just don't. You don't think anything about it. People
don't even know about it.
I know it, but we didn't do anything like that. And if my mother...
We're kind of like the Israelites who have lost the book.
Yes, that's right. That's right. But we were just always known as a Christian family. And like I said, we was never hungry. My mother always kept the house really clean. She was very strict about that. But we just always had a good life. And... you knew what Dad stood for, that's for sure. I don't know if there's anything else that I know once Mary Alice Metters and I, my best friend, was going to sing between acts, or it was at a Christmas program, maybe at Otwell they had, and we had got new coats for Christmas, and they were called Chesterfield coats. They were real pretty, and they were just kind of alike. Mine and hers had suede on the collar, and we sung a Christmas song or two, and sung with those coats on. And my mother then, and Mary Alice's mother, chewed us out later, said, you look so dumb up there. And we was hot, but we was so proud they were coats we left them on to sing. You can imagine what we looked like. But it didn't matter to us. That's what we wanted to do, So...
and it all worked out.
Yes. And what do you think about the Pike County paper? It's not much to it anymore. It takes me about 10 minutes to read it.
The hearings, I did such a fabulous job and put their life into that paper for 4 generations, and they just, and society, Irma, it's just all different. We don't use newspapers the way we used to. We don't even use radio the way we used to.
I know it, everything.
It's on that phone.
Yes.
I told the story a week or two ago when we had the cafe next door. I was walking up on a family and they were praying, so I stopped and backed off. Kind of went the other direction. They were together, heads bowed.
I know.
Scrolling through that phone. So it's just a different world.
It is. And I'm too old for it.
So what is your advice for us?
I don't really know. I pray about it, and I pray about my grandchildren. I think in a few years, what is it going to be for them? And I just pray that the Lord will make me an example, that they might see something in my life that is true and old-fashioned enough, I guess, because I just can't take some of this stuff that they just put out on today. It's just, they leave God out of everything, and then some of this foul talk and language on TV I think is terrible, although I watch Fox News a lot of times, most of the time.
Well, I think you're giving us that message today. I think
I hope so.
You are someone we should emulate and try to live the. So I'm going to go in a different direction. If we back up to, although you didn't remember the first couple years, but your life has spanned 11 decades, 1920s to 2020s.
Yes, I know.
And do you have a favorite time period? Have they all been blessings?
I believe they've all been blessings. I feel so fortunate that I had a husband as good as Charles was, and his way of thinking and his good life that he lived. I think that the Lord brought us together. I really do, because I've always had a Christian home. Even after we married, we established a Christian.
And that was with an iron worker.
Yes, I know it. I know it.
They are rough and tough guys.
Yes. And it does me good today when our son, he was born in 50, so he's 75 years old. But when he comes down and different things and talking, he'll say, well, like Dad told me years ago, and it does me good to hear some of the good things that Charles has instilled into Brian. That Brian is as honest as the day is long. He was a hard worker. He fell and injured his leg and had to take an early retirement because he got quite a bit of meat out of his one leg. But he is so honest. I'm not saying he's perfect, but he is so honest. And when I hear some of the good things that he has, and he and his dad would drink coffee twice a day. We have a building in the backyard that Charles put up just for that, and it's like a little restaurant, and they would go down there and drink coffee, and had a good relationship. And it does me good to hear the things that Brian will just mention in his talk. Well, Dad said this, and Dad said, just like Dad said, and I think that is so good.
You quote your dad quite a bit.
Pardon?
You talk about your dad quite a bit.
Yes.
That's good, too.
Yes. He was a wonderful person, honest as he could be. And, of course, he had a good upbringing, too, a Christian upbringing. I think that is so important. And it does me good to know that my children are in church on Sunday. And I owe it all to a Christian life, I think. I would think that.
So if you have advice, read that Bible to your children.
That's right. If I had a do-over, I would do it more. And yes, that is so important. And have prayer and keep God in your life, that is for sure. And when I send out birthday cards to my children and grandchildren, I usually put a little note in there to tell them to remember to keep God in their life. They don't all do it, I don't feel like. But I think surely someday they will wake up, The
last 2 or 3 years, there's a preacher, Alan Jackson, that I listen to daily, and he's always saying, read that Bible daily.
Yes, it's so important.
And stay in the Word.
It is so important.
So that's, yes. It makes a difference. And I tell my girls, I wish I would have started that long ago.
I wish I had taken more time to do things like that instead of thinking the house had to be clean and all that kind of stuff. But that is so important. It just really is. And honesty is so important. Charles wouldn't do a thing that was dishonest, and I don't believe Brian would either. And that means so much when you think that most anything goes these days, if it feels good, do it. And that's not right. It shouldn't be.
Yeah, our society, we are a fallen world. We are a fallen world.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And we have to stand against that for what is right in God's eyes.
That is so true. That is so true. It's so important. But I know...
we didn't know we were going to start preaching today, did we?
No. You didn't know you was going to hear all this old stuff that probably don't amount to a thing, but it's important to me. It's important. It has been important. And
that's what's important. That is what's important.
Yes.
All the other is stuff.
I know it. And when Charles passed away 6 years ago, I had the last song that they sung was "It Is Well With My Soul." I think that song means so much. And I wanted my kids to know that they could think and know that was true with Charles. And I had them to gather around the casket there at the funeral home. and promised that they would meet Charles someday, because if you don't live like you should, there's just one way to heaven, that's for sure. And they all gathered around the casket, and we had a minister that prayed with him. But I just think that is so important.
Faith.
Yes.
In this culture, it's tough.
It is. It is.
Do you think we're having a bit of a revival right now?
I do, since Charlie Kirk's death. I think it has sparked an interest. I said to somebody the other day, he could have almost been another Billy Graham, I do believe. Yeah. I feel like it has.
You're not the first person that's said that recently.
Right?
Recently, I went to a Culture and Christianity conference with that preacher I was telling you about, and the one of the draws to that was that Charlie Kirk was going to be a speaker,
yes,
and Erica was going to be speaking, and 2 days prior it happened. So, and Charlie's preacher still showed up, Rob McCoy, and
yes,
he's fabulous too.
Yes,
they're all great. My sister reminded me to show you this, but my sister has always been this extremely talented artist. She sent me a picture yesterday of Jesus and Charlie together.
That right? Isn't that something?
And remind me to show it to you.
Okay.
But I did send it to Carmen. But Irma, we love you. We love you. We love you being here.
I hope I haven't just rattled on here with a lot of nonsense and didn't amount to anything. But it's been a blessing for me too, and I have enjoyed this. And I hope that it hasn't just been all in vain. And
your kids and grandkids are going to enjoy hearing these stories again.
Okay. And have I looked all right? Looked young?
You look beautiful.
Young and pretty and everything?
Of
good.
Course.
Good.
I would guess you to be much younger than
I see.
97.
You watch it now.
Born February what of 1928?
21st of February.
February 21st. You're doing fabulous. You're doing great.
Well, I feel blessed that I can still live alone. I want to stay in my own home if I can at all. And although I don't, I read the Bible, and then I do search word Bible stories. I like the search word books. You do. Do you know what they are? You do, don't you?
I see them. I haven't. I'm not a puzzle
They've got them on the Bible, just on the Bible, and my kids all know that, so they're always buying me some. And it's enlightening and inspirational a little bit. It's better than just
like a crossword book.
I'm not smart enough for a crossword. Yeah. My husband did crosswords. That'd be hard on my brain. I don't think I'd better don't want to tax my brain.
Which version of the Bible do you read?
The King James. I like King James the best, I believe. And I have a lady friend. She's my granddaughter's ex-mother-in-law. She's a widow lady now, and she's about 70 years old. And she goes to the Church of Christ. And she, 2 or 3 months ago, she said she would like to come and see me one day a week. And she said, I want to do something for somebody. But every Monday morning she comes, she brings lunch and enough for me to have for my evening meal. She brings her own skillet. She brings everything with her. When she leaves, the kitchen doesn't look like anybody's ever cooked a meal there. And we talk the Bible. And she said, now, if you want to pay me, I'll quit coming. She said, I'm not doing this for money. I want to help somebody. And she's such a blessing because she's a Christian lady, and we've got different views on some things, but we have prayer together, and I just feel blessed that the Lord has sent her there, and it is a blessing. and she helps me a lot. I look forward to Monday mornings,
They always say two things you don't talk about in public, and we've covered them both.
Okay, I won't.
No. I'm just saying they say you don't talk about religion and politics.
I see what you mean.
If we don't have religion and politics to talk about, there's nothing to talk about.
I know it. And like I said, we have prayer together. I've got confidence in her. She's got confidence in me. And we know there's just one way to heaven, but we don't all see it just exactly the same way.
Right.
And I feel like she's a blessing to me, and I hope I can be a blessing to her. I hope I can fulfill the emptiness in her life right now, too.
Certainly you're a blessing to her and to all of us.
Well, thank you.
And to those of us who have joined us today.
Well, thank you so much. And he didn't get mad and leave or anything?
Nope, he's still back there.
He's not even asleep, is he?
He's awake.
And to think I knew Ida Mae real well, too.
Ida was wonderful, wasn't she?
Yes. And I'm sure you know the Hill Boys. And
I do.
Most anybody up here knows them.
They are good fellas.
Yes. They're kind of rough and tough. And Janice is so nice, isn't she?
She is.
Yes. And it was too bad that Dick had to die so soon. And he was a ball of fire, wasn't he? Never know what to expect from him.
Yeah. He was young.
Yes.
I bet that's been 17 years or so, 17 or 18.
And when Sid died, you remember when Sid fell, their son? That was in 91, I believe. Sid fell on a job at, I forget just where, and killed him. And so I do feel blessed. And I want to be a blessing to somebody else. But I've enjoyed this today, and I'm not a. I didn't know what you wanted to hear about because I don't know anything about anything on the Ivy and Otwell.
That's all good. It was perfect.
Well, I've enjoyed being here.
What was the other name that they gave your community?
Long Branch, long years ago, called Long Branch.
Okay.
At Ivy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long Branch. Okay.
But I'm glad there's a church there. We went to church there all the time. I've been around that altar praying as a little kid. I know my brother was up there once when the whole church was up there, and he went to sleep. He was about 10 or 11 years old. He went to sleep while they was praying. He was up at the altar, but he was sound asleep. So we've just always felt so close to that church and loved that church. And I'm glad it's doing well now.
I think they're doing well. I have not been to a church service.
Uh-huh.
I've been to a funeral visitation there, but
I see.
Since it's switched, but I think they're very happy and active.
Well, that's good. I read about in the paper. I do read the church notes, and I read the ramblings on my mind, and I read what Dr. Fennell, is that his name?
Yes.
I read his articles, and I read from out of the past. I like that. Them 75-year-old notes or news is about as good as anything in the paper.
Yeah.
Because I can remember a lot of that happened,
All right.
And I worked for the Otwell Star, Petersburg Press for a while. After I quit Craig's store at Otwell, Don Montgomery was a editor and owner, and I had a little office there in Otwell. I took care of subscriptions from up there and sent Otwell News into the paper.
Okay.
That was in 49 or 50, I guess. A long time ago for you.
Beulah Gray.
Yes,
Beulah
wasn't
Gray?
she wonderful?
She was a little before my time, but
Yes. The obituaries.
She did a fabulous job, didn't she?
She sure did. She was a wonderful lady, and she would make your obituary just sound so good. Tell what all you could do, but she was a wonderful lady.
I know her son Ralph.
Yes, I did too. Uh-huh. What was his, Ralph Dale, was it? Ralph Dale, I believe, Ralph Dale Gray.
I'm not sure.
I believe so. Yes. Yes, and they were, and the Otwell Methodist Church is not doing too awful good anymore as far as attendance. They say there's just hardly anybody goes, and it used to be such an inspiration and had a big crowd. I hate to see churches like that. And Algiers Church already got a
facelift.
Yes, and they, it's looking pretty good now. They're rebuilding.
I think they're doing okay.
Yes, and you knew Donald Davis and Martha Jean. Martha Jean's my first cousin.
Mm-hmm.
And
wonderful people.
Yes, and Greg Davis, you know Greg?
I do know Greg.
Yes. So see, I have to...
His brother Roger and I were good buddies.
Is that right?
And we would go to the political conventions together before I was married. But
yeah, Greg and what was Teresa's maiden name?
Briscoe.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I know. They were wonderful people too.
Yep.
So, but you have to behave every place you go because somebody knows you.
That's okay.
But one good thing about me, I can tell a tale any way I want to tell it because there's nobody there any older that's going to correct me. So I can just elaborate on things. You never know the difference. So, but I hope I didn't do that today. Hope this is.
You did great.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome.
And hope it didn't talk right through your lunch hour.
We're great.
Okay.
So thanks for joining us for this program of WFPC Podcasting. The program is brought to you by Harris Real Estate, Hathaway Excavating and Rock Yard, and Petersburg Car Wash. Please like the podcast and share with your friends so more people can hear about it. You may find WFPC Podcasting on our website, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you listen to your favorite media. Join us next week for another episode of WFPC Podcasting, exploring the people, information, and news right here in Pike County. See you next week.
Thanks for watching WFPC Podcasting, your local source for the heart and history of Pike County, Indiana. From back roads to town centers, we bring you the voices, stories, and news that shape our community. Join us on this journey through the past, present, and future of Pike County, Indiana. Tune in next week for the next episode of WFPC Podcasting.